Hey everyone. Hello. How are you doing? Hi. Welcome. We are here to doodle with Dallas today. I am Dallas. Nice to meet you. If you're just coming in, thanks for being here. I really appreciate you. We're going to doodle today a little bit, and we are going to use short drawing media, which can be a variety of different things. And if you're just coming into the room, and if you're joining me right now, go ahead and let me know you're in the room by typing down on the chat function here on YouTube. And I will say hi. If I'm looking in this direction, it means that I'm looking at the chat and trying to see if there's any questions answered. Feel free to put in your questions. And at the end, like the last 10 minutes, I will scroll through. And hi, Gretchen. Hello, Satisfied by Love. Hey, you were in here yesterday. And Chip and Susie, hi. Nice to see you in here today. This is really fun. Thanks for joining me. I am very happy to doodle today. Bonjour. Hello, Katie. Hi. This is going to be fun, you guys. Okay, so I'm wondering what you all have for drawing media, because depending on what you have, I can change up some of my ideas. I brought charcoal. I brought vine. If you have a stick of vine like this, which you might not, that's okay. I like to break it in half like that. So I like to work with a little bit smaller pieces, and I will show you why in just a moment. I also have, hi from Colorado, Nicole, Autumn, Danae, Heather, Brandy. Everybody's here. AG Citrus Studios, hi. Thanks for telling me who you are. Okay, so Tracy and Lillian have oil pastels and chalk pastels, and they have wrapperless crayons. Oh, perfect. Okay, that's the other something that has a wrapper on it. I want you to peel it off so that we can use the drawing tool in a different way than maybe you're used to. These are oil pastels. I'm just personally not a huge fan of chalk pastels just because it creates a ton of dust, which can get out of hand. Also, compressed charcoal is a little bit messier and finer ground than vine charcoal. I have an easier time cleaning up with this vine charcoal. I have water here, excuse me. Okay, scratch that, no oil, oops, just chalk. Perfect, that's great. Welcome Mousy Mom and Jessica and Mariana and Avi and Vanessa and Rachel. Welcome, guys. Okay, first of all, much like yesterday, I want you to forget about the last terrible thing that happened in your day. And hopefully you were excited about this happening. So hopefully you're in good spirits. But this is a time that we can totally focus our minds on something else. And let's start. Okay. I want you to take watercolor's fine too. Hey, Megan, how are you? Yeah, watercolor is totally fine. Use it the same way you used it yesterday. You looked like you had it on your table, so that's great. If you have a piece of painter's tape, though, anyone watching, don't scramble to go get it if it's not near you. But if you do have like washi tape or masking tape or some painter's tape, if you need to have your paper on your table, it might be helpful for you to tack it down in two of the corners, because we're just going to be kind of using it in a different way today. That might help. Okay. Hi, Mary. Nice to see you in here. Juliana and Evelyn are using chalk pastels. Perfect. Okay. We're going to play a little game here. We are going to take our drawing media, and this is my little rock sketch from yesterday. And so I'm just going to go right on top of it, but I want you to take whatever you have, and I want you to draw 5 points on your paper in different places. They don't have to be equidistant. 5 points anywhere on your paper. Go. Don't do what I'm doing. Do your own thing. Okay. I might need to change to a darker. I'm going to change to my charcoal, but you still use whatever you have. I just want this to show up a little bit better. Okay. What we're going to do is use these 5 points as the head, 2 hands, and 2 feet of a person. And you are going to take these 5 points on your paper and draw a really silly portrait of a person using these 5 points as head, 2 hands, and feet, and the body that's in between them. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to give you about 4 minutes, and then I will check in with you. I think I just made a six-fingered man, Katie. Oh, this is why I'm saying this portrait can be really silly, because a person in these proportions would just be funny. Okay. Good afternoon. Hey, Marcia. Okay, for those of you who are just joining, we are drawing a figure based on 5 different points that we put on our paper. So my 5 points were here, 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 and here. So those 5 points needed to be head, hands, and 2 feet. Okay. I think we have 2 more minutes to wrap up your figure sketch. Just be really loose with it and just make it kind of silly, because we need to warm up a bit. Okay. Hey, Molly. Welcome. We're doodling a figure that we made out of 5 points. I had 1 point here, 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 and here, and no one knew what they were for. And then I said, you're going to have to make a man or a figure that is 1 point is the head, and there's 2 hands and 2 feet, and draw something in between that. He's kind of cool looking. Okay. Wrap up in 1 more minute. Do I always start conversations this way? Oh, too funny. Okay, I want his hip to come more down here. I really like to use charcoal because you can be really free with your line. All right. So did everyone get their silly figure doodled down? Hopefully you have another piece of paper, because I want you to switch to your new piece of paper. But in the meantime, I want to show you something really cool about vine charcoal. You can take an old sock or a random piece of cloth that you have, and you can kind of use it like an eraser. So vine charcoal, it doesn't stick to your paper as well as something, say, like oil pastel or crayon. You can slightly wipe it off. So this is why I really love vine charcoal in the homeschool room, because if you have a budget and you don't want to be blowing through a bunch of paper, I use one piece of paper multiple times over with just vine charcoal. So now, if you have your second piece of paper and you have your medium, and even if you have watercolor, that's okay too. We're going to warm up with something called J curves. So this was like a fun little warm up, and now we're going to be a little bit more purposeful with our marks, and everything is going to make sense once I show and explain what we're doing here. Okay, so yesterday we looked at an ellipse, and if I hold this cup here, you can see the back of the cup, you can see the front of the cup, and this whole shape that the rim of this cup is making, this is an ellipse. If I move this cup up in space, what happens to the width of this point back here and this point here? Did it increase or decrease? Okay. Oh, that's okay, Samantha. All right, so as I pull this cup down, what now happens to, I'm gonna put it over here. What happens now to the ellipse the further down I pull this? Here's the back of the cup, here's the front of the cup. So that's kind of a little bit of an introduction into perspective. Noticing that things change depending on where you're looking at them in the room and if this thing is moving or not. We also notice that when I turn it this way, it becomes like a tilted, it's a little bit more circular. It's not as drastic. Hi, everyone. Increase. Yes, decrease. Okay. I think there's maybe 45-second to a minute lag time on that. And then as I turn this cup around, being careful not to spill anything out, you can see this is making a different shape everywhere it's being turned. So I want you to start noticing that about the things around your world. If there's a vase that is on a countertop, try to look at the shapes of that vase and the outside curves of it, and if you can see the top of it, and think in your mind, if I were to just sit down and sketch this vase, what shapes would I have to use to create that overall effect? But we're gonna try some ellipses on our paper, and we sort of got into that yesterday when we had our quadrants on our paper. So now with your same tool that you have, I want you to take your arm and to be moving from your shoulder, which I talked about a little bit yesterday. And I'll just show you right here in camera. I'm going to draw an ellipse like this. You can also move the other way. Try it in both directions. Make sure you know the size of your paper here and try not to go off the edge. And if you have your paper on your desk, you might want to hold it with your other hand like this. Okay, so I'm just going to make an ellipse. I'm going to try to roughly follow this point, this point, this point, and that point. And now I'm just kind of moving over that line, and then I'm going to press it down onto my paper. So as you can see, I didn't exactly hit my points over here, and that's okay. What you're looking for more is just a very confident line that's unwavering. It's quick enough to be very graceful looking. So that's what you're going for here. Hi, Min. Nice to see you in here. Hello, Rachel and Nicole. Thanks everyone for coming. So we've made this more horizontal ellipse. So you can see that this bisected, it makes this curve and it makes this curve. And if we quarter it again, you can see that this is a shorter distance and this is a longer distance. So really that's what an ellipse is. It's a squished circle and it's elliptical. So now I have quartered this. In between this point and this point is what is called a J curve. So you'll see the shape a lot in nature. This is not a perfect circle, and you don't see many perfect circles in nature. But this is also a similar direction that a tree trunk can take shape. Branches of trees, they branch out. If you look at them closely, their curves are very slight, and that's what makes them so beautiful and organic looking, is that they don't follow the symmetry of perfect circles. Everything is a little bit varied. So now that I've shown you where these J curves are, now you can think of an ellipse that's smaller inside of this, and you can draw just by decreasing the motion of your shoulder a little bit. You can draw a smaller ellipse, try to center it in the same area that this is going to be the center of it. And maybe if you went one way the first time, go the opposite way. So I will go clockwise this time. And so now we've got the same quarters from here to here. We found another J curve. J curve, J curve, J curve, and two more down here. But this is not the only direction you would see an ellipse ever. You might also see, and if you don't have something that can erase, just literally draw on top of it. It's actually going to look pretty cool in the end. Now, what if we go vertically with our ellipse? Now we've got that going on. So it's okay if your points don't always meet up all the time. But we still have the short length and we have the long length of the ellipse. And so we've got all of these beautiful J curves in here. And really, even just practicing this motion with your arm is doing something. When you're doodling, you're actually accomplishing something, even though you're not creating a masterpiece. So I encourage you to get a sketchbook, to doodle on empty paper, doodle in your free time, just draw whatever is out of your imagination, and really have fun with whatever you're using. So we did a horizontal, we did a vertical. Now let's see if we can get somewhere in between and do an oblique ellipse. So I'm going to try mine right here. And this takes a lot of practice. I would not be surprised if your ellipse looks like a squished hot dog or a floppy pancake. Don't be discouraged by that. We're just practicing controlling our body and making our hand and our shoulder and whatever we're holding do what we want it to do. So once you've tried a few obliques, try going the other way, try making smaller versions of these that just hit the middle points. This is kind of shaping up to look like a sphere. If my paper were just a little bit wider, this ellipse in here could have made a nice sphere shape. Pancake sounds yummy, I know, right? Okay. So, and then with these obliques, you've got these J curves here. Maybe whichever J curve you're liking, just try to get some muscle memory into your arm. Take that J curve and now just slightly move down on your paper and try to do the same J curve. Same motion. I ran out of room. Why don't we do a couple over here? So you can see that this is really making really beautiful lines and marks. Right, when you're ready, we're going to try some straight lines. With straight lines, I want you to decide a beginning point and an ending point to your line. And then imagine in your mind you crossing those points with a light line, or I'm sorry, with a straight line. For example, I'm just totally gonna draw over that, so I hope that doesn't distract you. Here's my beginning point. Here's my ending point. I'm gonna try to draw a straight, pretty swift line right to the bottom, right where that ends. I'm gonna try my left hand here too. I'll start there, I'll end the line there. I'm imagining it doing its thing, and then I put it down. So with my left hand, you can see I'm not as accurate in my vertical line as I am with my right hand. That's okay, we just move on. The other thing you can keep in mind is spacing in between these lines. Try your best to space these evenly across your paper. The harder you press your medium, probably the thicker your line will be. And I hope you who are doing watercolor are getting some extra sheets of paper. I've been able to erase all this, so. Paper grows on trees, and paper helps you to be better because you can just keep using it and keep practicing. I like the emojis happening in the chat right now. There's a guy going, and a cool dude. I'm not sure what those mean, but I'm sure it's something. This will be my last line here. Ooh. Okay, so my straightest line was probably this one right in the center. This is all great practice. So what I want you to do now is try some horizontal lines. Maybe start one of your lines over here and end it over here, and then start a line here and end it over here. And then do that down your whole paper. Just practicing moving your arm confidently, swiftly, and that will give you a nice, beautiful, pretty straight line. Ooh, oil pastels for the first time. That's exciting. Well, I'll grab mine out when I switch papers. Okay. I've got a pretty nice grid here. If you were careful to keep space in between your lines that you're practicing here, it'll look like a quilt. So once you have this, what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that inside of these squares are about to be circles that you make on them. I want you to try to stay within the square and try to touch each point of the side of the square with the sides of your circle. So I'll demonstrate. If you've got a couple of oblong ones, you could do some ellipses in there. I think this is my squarest one, so I'll try a circle right in there. Try to just do one stroke. See what you can do with one stroke. And remember that you've got clockwise and counterclockwise. When I started, my vine charcoal was about this big, and now I'm down to that much. One more thing I want to show you before I go on to my oil pastel, because that sounds really fun to play with. You can also use the broad side of your short drawing tool. So the broad side would be right here. You're going to slap it on its side and pull it down your page. Why don't you take the broad side right now and do a couple vertical lines? Oh, I'm gonna have to get a new sheet of paper. So you go ahead and do that on your paper. The charcoal and the oil pastel are not liking each other on this. Mariana says, working with charcoal and using the same paper without erasing, will this work? I just ignore what I draw in the background, and then it actually kind of tones my paper nicely. Which reminds me, before I get off this point, I'll just use the broad side of my vine and show you something real quick here. I can take the broad side and nicely tone my paper, because all we're doing is really line practicing and spacing practicing with these exercises. I wouldn't blow through 5 papers unless you had a really good deal on newsprint or something. So you can see that this has turned a nice shade of gray. You can get it more evenly toned too the more you mark it up. But what's neat about this is that you can take any mechanical pencil eraser or plastic eraser. Staedtler is a good brand for that. The nice white plastic erasers. I'm looking at one over there and my arm is not long enough to get it. But you can take this away. So say you're trying to see where the light is hitting an object. You can tone your paper gray, and then you can use the gray as your medium tones that you're seeing in shadows, and you can use your vine charcoal as the actual shadows. So say you have a random sphere, and then you've got the shadow of that object here, maybe, and the light's hitting it here. You can take your eraser, and let's say the light's coming in the window over top, and so you've got this nice white highlight. And then maybe you can kind of squibble? I don't know what I just said. Squiggle? There's a word that I'm trying to think of that I'm not thinking of right now. So just taking away little, I'm kind of using it like as a pencil. So I'm doing some cross hatching here, which it doesn't really matter what your mark looks like. This is just practice, but yeah, it's so cool. I love using a minimal amount of tools because you can do a lot if you have a little bit. If you have too much, sometimes it's just too overwhelming and you don't know what to use. So now I have this white, I think it's just a colored pencil, so I don't know if it's doing much, but basically the idea was that we were putting light into our drawing, and then this is the tone of the paper, and then we were adding in shadow. Looking at where the light is hitting your object and where the shadows are happening is really important. That's what makes form happen. If you look at my face right now, you can see that this side of my face is more in shadow, and this side, the window is right here. So I've got more light, and I've got a really bright highlight right here, you can see, and then probably the darkest shadow on my face, if I don't accidentally put charcoal on it, is right here under my nose and right here under my lip. So really, if you were to take a dark drawing tool and mark on your paper the darkest areas that you saw on my face and what shapes they were, by the end, you would actually have the essence of the form of my face. And then you could add in the areas that you see the most light hitting me. Right here, top of my nose, right here. That helps you see things in more of a broad and more of a three-dimensional way. I'm going to break for some water. Are you drinking any tea or coffee this afternoon? Maybe you've had your tea time. If you do tea time. If Molly's in here, I don't think Molly does tea time. Blender. Yeah, it's a dirty sock. No, it's clean. It's an old sock. That's what I meant. It's like, I have a dancer in my house, so he thinks that this is his ballet shoe. And so he's always wearing the very tiptoes of his shoes or his socks. Molly, she's up in here. That's so funny. What if I don't even like this drawing and I want to start over again? No problem. It never happened. Okay. Fueled by coffee. Yes. You can also do your starting points and your ending points with curves. I want to end my curve there. Or maybe I wanted to end my curve and go that way. It's resisting, that oil pastel is resisting that mark right there. So if you've got some oil pastels or something where you have a couple of different options for color, I'm going to use the back of this actually. See how that goes. Burn it. So funny. Burn that piece of paper. Never happened. Okay, I don't want to use my charcoal again. So let's say I have two colors of pastel. If you want to practice looking at form, choose something around you that's in the room that you can see is definitely being touched by the light. So if you have something in a windowsill nearby, of course I don't. I'm gonna have to look around. I've got an oil diffuser over on my desk and it's this shape, but it's got a flat top. So if I wanted to use my lighter of my two oil pastels, I am going to think this is going to be all the light parts on the object that I see. So I see that the top of it is got that shape. And then we've got, it comes kind of down like this. And at this point, I'm just scribbling. Maybe that's the word I was trying to find, was scribbling. And then I've got also like a light that's being reflected off the table on the bottom here. And then I've got the darker shadows are happening here. So you can see that it's, maybe you can't see that so well. It's not showing up super well on the screen that I see now. So maybe if I complete it a little further. What happens if I mix the two of these colors? Because I have a really dark area right here. And I know that these are kind of complementing colors because this one is about here on the color wheel and this one is about down here. So they'll kind of neutralize each other and make a little bit of a brown. I'm not a big fan of blending with your finger with oil pastels just because I think it can kind of get out of hand and then you're your piece can look a little overworked and a little muddied. So I like to just use the tool itself. Okay, so you can kind of see, and I can also just leave the paper as the whitest parts too. Remember that you're also working usually with a white sheet of paper. So if you're nature journaling and there's, if there's a white flower or snow on the ground, those are the areas of your paper that you'll want to leave white. So be thinking in terms of what is white in my drawing here. So I need to keep those areas of shape in mind before I put any watercolor or anything on the page. Susie says she wishes she had a cup of tea, but it's too hot out. Doesn't that stink? You just want a hot beverage and it's too hot out. Oh, hi, Rachel. Okay, right now I'm showing how you can do a form drawing with two different colors of pastel. So I chose this sort of light blue to be all of the white areas of my diffuser that I'm looking at on the desk. And I am using this sort of orangey red color for all the shadow areas. So I was trying to show that there's light areas and there's dark areas of objects around you. So if you are drawing the lights and the darks, you will end up with a three-dimensional form, especially if you walk away and if you look at it from far away. So if you have been drawing something around you on your windowsill or the coffee mug over in the kitchen, and if you have enough of it drawn onto your paper, hang it up on the refrigerator and walk 12 feet away and look at it from far away. It will probably look like the object that you were drawing. Sometimes when we're working so close to something, we get a little bit lost in it, and to us it doesn't really look like what's happening until you look far away, and then it makes sense as a whole together. Luca is asking if you'll draw more things. Oh, quit my job here. What am I doing? Being too talky. Okay. I have got, okay. If you want to keep these drawings for your portfolio, you can use sprayable fixative on charcoal, and it will kind of keep your marks in place. But I would also put a piece of newsprint on top if you really want to keep it, so that then the next piece of paper you put on top of it, if you're storing it, won't get rubbed off by your extra sheet of paper. Or you could take a picture of it, honestly, and just store it on your computer. Okay, I have a mostly white piece of paper here. So Luca wants me to draw more things. That's okay. I know. And I'm too impatient to make iced coffee, so I don't know what's wrong with me, but we are 40 minutes in. I'm gonna take a little water break. I'm gonna go over and get my sunglasses, and I'll put my sunglasses on the windowsill and I'll draw that. So here are my sunglasses. Well, I wear these when I do video editing at night. So I'm just gonna set them probably like this at an angle on my windowsill. And then I'll actually use the colors that I'm seeing in it. Okay. Observation time. Never skip the observation time if you're drawing something from observation. I'll try to talk it out as I'm looking at it. I am looking over and I see a really big shape that's closest to me. And the shape of that is, oh, well, I'll have to do it this way. also don't want to trail off my paper. So I'm going to take my hands like this and I'm going to hold them in front of my face and measure by closing one eye. I'm going to measure how far apart the end of the glasses is over here and then the end of the glasses over there, which is about there. I don't want to make a tiny little drawing like that. And I can scale pretty well, which is something that just comes with a lot of practice. So I'm actually going to be thinking about that point here. So I will mark it as here. And then it kind of, I can do the same thing with a pencil. I can measure angles. For example, I can measure the angle of this top of this piece of paper. And then if I don't move my hand, I can put it on my paper. And that is the angle of the top of this. Same thing if I want to draw the side of my easel. Here's the angle of the end of that. So keep it out in front of you, drag it over to your paper, and plot your points. So I'm holding this out in front of my face, and I'm going to try to figure out the angle between the top of the sunglasses and the bottom of the sunglasses over here, which is right here. Now, same thing, but I have to keep this flat. I have to keep this in one plane because my paper is only one plane. So out in front of my face, you don't want to be turning the pencil toward you like this or tilting it this way. You want to stay in the plane of your paper, but pretend like your paper is out in front of you when you're measuring your object. So I've got that measurement. That was the angle right there. It comes up. Yeah, I think you're hearing my computer. The fan is going crazy in it, and I'm not running any other programs other than my web browser. Sorry about that. Okay, we've got the darkest part. Squinting again. Squinting is great. Squint to see things because often we see too many details. If you squint, you're going to see the darkest things and the lightest things. So if you can capture the shape of the lights of things and the darks of things, that will help you a lot. I wonder what you guys are drawing out there. Was there something in the room that you're drawing, or are you just watching me at this point? Ooh, I mismeasured here. So that, actually this needs to come in here. It's way more at a tilted angle. So if I were working in charcoal, I could just wipe that area away and kind of start over. There'd be a little bit of a smear mark underneath, but I'm not worried about smear marks. I'm more worried about correcting what I see is off in my drawing. Oh, you're drawing a paintbrush. That's fun. Okay. Well, I'm going to try to see if I can kind of, now I need this to go here. Okay. Here's one little, what is this part on your glasses? This side frame part is here. And the other one is back here, behind the orange lens of the glasses. So it's coming through like this, but then it kind of dips down. And comes out the side like that. So is my computer humming over my voice? I hope you can hear me okay. A colored pencil. If you're using water, experience comes into play. But what color is the shadow? If you really look at it, is it blue? Is it brown? It could be, if your object is red, it could just be a darker red. So don't think that you're adding in shadows. Think of the areas of shadows as just another color in your drawing. For example, the lenses of my glasses are orange, but there's way more light orange down here in this shape right here. Then once it gets to here, it gets to be a little redder just because it's hitting another shadow in the back. And then, ooh, I really fudged that. This part of the frame. I should have measured better. But there's an area of reflected light coming from the window right here that's actually a light purple color. And it's this shape. So if you can see that, it's light purple. It's looking kind of gray on my screen here, but I'm using a purple crayon. And then it actually looks kind of brown here. So I'm going to make it brown by mixing this. And this is definitely more brown in just this little triangular area. So now, since the camera's farther away, if I look at my computer screen, my drawing looks a little bit different than me just looking at, this just looks like a bunch of scribbles with my face close to it like this. But if I were to back up 12 feet and look at it, I would sense that this is a reflection in my sunglasses. And then now I'm seeing, probably because I did this shadow in purple, now my eye is scanning the area and notices more actually purple colors in my glasses over there. So I see a purple line right here, and it's just the color of the light coming in the window. I see another one here now. That's the weird thing about drawing, is that the longer you look at something, the nuances of the colors start to come out, and you get a little bit more detailed with how you're rendering that if you're really observing the object for an amount of time. Okay. So here's kind of what my glass, and we are already 50 minutes into our drawing time here. So I would love to answer questions. So I'm going to stop what I'm doing here, grab some baby wipes. Baby wipes, by the way, are awesome for cleaning up, both watercolor and charcoal and pastel. With pastel, actually, you might need to get more than just water wipes. I think you need a little bit of alcohol in them. But don't use too many of these with our shortage of wiping materials right now. Okay, good. You can hear me all right. Nicole's drawing a colored pencil. Someone's drawing a face while Mom watches me draw. Mom's tired. I hear ya. I am tired too. Okay. Well, really quick too, I announced yesterday, and maybe the people who haven't seen me or seen me online the last 2 days don't know that my video drawing course is now out and is ready for you to purchase. It is also at an introductory rate at $39.95 right now. So if you like the way I teach drawing, please check that out. I'm putting a link right here. I'm going to grab it from my website. This link will get you right to the page that I'm hosting the product on. And if you want to check it out, I could see this course being great for a group of moms that are in a co-op together to go through together and to be able to then teach your own children in your own time. It's a great resource. I worked really hard on it. Some of these same concepts are in that course. It goes further in depth, and there are 33 videos. So I highly recommend checking that out. And I wanted to, Gretchen asks, I would love to hear your advice on drawing drawing white in a nature journal. You said leave it white. Then do you outline? Sometimes I do. Sometimes, let me show you. Ooh, you guys, I forgot about my nature journal. That was specifically requested. I can show you a few sketches I've done. It depends with a watercolor. When you're working with watercolor, you have a whole palette full of colors, and depending on how much water you add to something, it will reduce the value, so to be lighter, and the more strong pigments that you use. So there's blues that have a really low value range, like cerulean, and like phthalo blue is super pigmented and has so many fine tiny particles in it. And then there, like a carmine red is also the same way. So if you were to mix a carmine and a phthalo blue, those are really dark valued colors separately, so that when you mix them together, they're going to make a really dark purple. So if you have a purple that's lighter in value, use something like a cerulean blue and a pink, or something that has a lighter or a smaller value range. Let me show you real quick. This tester sheet shows you the difference in value ranges of these 4 reddish colors. So we've got this magenta. The only thing I did was I just kept adding water to it. So you can see it'd be probably like over here before it actually got white. This one loses its value really about right there. So I would say this one has an even smaller value range than this magenta. This one, it stays darker a little bit longer, so it has a shorter value range than this one, but this one has quite a large value range, so it'd probably be about out here before it got to be totally white. So something like this mixed with like a phthalo blue would give you a really dark purple shadow if you had a really dark purple in your shadow. That's why I also like cold press paper in general with working with watercolor, because it can take on water and you can get so many more values without getting really, really crinkly paper. Your drawing looks like it's floating. Is that okay? I noticed the same thing about mine, and you know why? Because we didn't add any of what it's sitting on. So if I were to add what it's sitting on, it's roughly this angle. So it's sitting on my windowsill, about right there. But it's actually more like that. So that's kind of, now that's showing you how it's resting on my windowsill. Before I added in that information, just looks like a pair of floating glasses. I can also add in where the back of the windowsill is, right back there. And you can see now it looks like glasses resting on a windowsill. Okay. This was so interesting. Thank you so much for leading us through this. It's inconceivable how you can use the paper over and over so many times with charcoal. I know, I really love Vine. Really love Vine charcoal. It's one of my favorites. And as long as you have a washer, you can just chuck this sock or whatever you use in the washer. But I think it's a little bit less messy, honestly, than chalk on blackboard. And we didn't even get into chalk today. Okay, Gretchen and Megan both asked about whites in nature journaling. And actually the answer to that question also sort of relates to this. So this drawing made a little bit less sense before I showed you what was around it. Same thing with this, I think it was a pussy willow blossom that I saw. This is where I've left my paper white, but white only looks white compared to the darkness around it. How's that for an analogy? So I decided to mix a dark brown because it was probably, there was probably some mulch or something on the ground around this tree. And so I just took my brush and I basically made the dark area around that part of the petal, and it makes this look even more white. That part of the flower pops off the page now. Susie wants to know if I like watercolor or charcoal better. I'm really liking watercolor, but I also really like charcoal. That's an unfair question. They just do two totally different things. Here's a little in my nature notebook. It was requested that I show. I don't consider the nature notebook to be art. So I wanted to be clear about that. The nature notebook is you discovering things about your world and creation. And so it's going to look a lot like flower specimens, what the sky looked like that day, what the moon cycle was, when the sunset happened, birds, what birds are in season right now, what flowers are in season. I even drew this tiny little red insect because it was this really tiny, really bright red spider in the forest, and this was kind of nearby. Maybe one of you could help identify that flower. I loved how the unopened petals were tightly curled up in a cone shape. And then it also, like you see, like it was just tightly wound up into a cone shape there. Yeah, Mariana, that flower. I didn't do any, I don't have any white watercolor. I decided to use the white of my paper as the white. So I filled in enough background information that gave the idea that this was the white part of the petal. So from far away, you can tell, and it almost looks like you're just kind of glimpsing in on this window of this one flower. It doesn't mean you have to add in the entire background of your object. For me, it just gave it some context. So, same idea with this tree branch. Of course, the entire sky was blue that day, but I just wanted to give the idea that this is the branch that I saw. This was the color of the sky that day. That told me something about it. I think it was in the spring. Hey, it was literally March 24th last year. That's fun. So I made this drawing 1 year ago yesterday. I'm thinking it was a sycamore because of these, but I'm not sure. Aria had fun today. I had fun with you guys. Thanks for coming. I hope I covered everything. I like all of your questions. Bye. See you later. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. I'm almost done. You gotta go out.
So it came to the part of dun 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 dun. But Mom, can I have a snack?
Yes, you may. Get some of the trail mix from the freezer. Thank you. All right. At this point, I'm just kind of paging through.
Mom, can we eat while watching?
Press the space bar.
Okay.
Pause it. I let them watch the Nutcracker today. That was a special treat. Eric is asking if it's easier to shade with pastels or watercolor. I guess it depends on how you're using it. I wouldn't say one is harder or easier than the other, in my opinion. You might feel differently though, whatever you're more comfortable with, and if you're trying to match the shade of the color. I've just had more recent practice with mixing watercolors, so I think I'd be a little bit more confident with mixing a shade with watercolor. And with pastel, they're a little less easy for me to keep just because this is going to smear a little bit unless I put a piece of newsprint on top to keep it this way, or put some fixative on it, which is like a spray, kind of like a hairspray, but for paper. Yeah, so they're just different. They're just different mediums. They're all good. Yeah. Wait, was that Standing Bear? Yes. That was the drawing I did that day, Avi. At that sycamore tree at Standing Bear. Okay, so now we're getting into some tree branches that I've done. This is why I like cold pressed paper, because the paper just takes on the water so well and it doesn't dry. So it gets, I didn't try to have this nicely flow into that, but because it's watercolor, it just really nicely dispersed like that. Nicole Parker asks, how do you get oil pastel lines to stay smooth? My lines are always bumpy, even if you're on a small surface. Yeah, same here. You can blend it with your finger. Also, you can take a little, excuse me, you can take, there's a tool that's like a paper blending tool, I think, that usually it's used in charcoal drawing, and it's about this big and it looks like a crayon, but it's just literally a rolled up like cardstock that you can take, and you can use it like a blending tool, like a fine blending tool. So For instance, I could take some of these really dark areas and really crisp them up with that blending tool if I wanted, and to make the edges really crisp. For me, that wasn't really the point of this session here because, oh, I hope this is going to focus again. I lost my focus on the screen there. So you have a lot of leeway with it and some things that you can do to finish it more. I kind of see all drawing as just practice and seeing. So I'm personally not too concerned with this looking kind of scratchy and kind of worked up quickly because I think that those lines are confident and they helped me do this drawing in a more cohesive way. So if I were to spend 2 hours making a drawing of my glasses here, it probably would have looked really detailed and really too heavily worked up, which in my opinion isn't always the point of doing a drawing lesson. Okay, gotta go make dinner. I need to do that too. I need to be going. And my kids are eating their snack right now. So I can page through a couple pages of my nature notebook. This is Wild Columbine. A lot of you probably know that. That one. There's a spruce sprig of some kind. I'm trying to get the most light on it. Here's a patch of clover. Here's one where I use the white of my paper for this clover flower too. Oh, you think you have the tool that I'm talking about? Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Oh, sorry. This is Isabel, Erica's daughter. I love your style of painting and I love making charcoal figure drawings. Your nature notebook is so cool. You're welcome. I appreciate you being here and spending some time with me. And if you just keep practicing, you will enjoy drawing more and you'll get better at it. So I have practiced a long, long time. I went to college for fine arts and I did a lot of drawing. You will, if you take fine arts in college, you'll do a lot of drawing and you'll keep drawing more and more no matter what you go into. If you go into oil painting or sculpture, ceramics, anything like that, it's always best to stay in those foundational drawing skills and keep practicing. So here is some moss. Someone was asking about, or this was a lichen on a tree. So I made just a color map. This is just literally areas of color, but if you look at it far away, it looks like the edge of a tree. This is the silhouette of those leaves. I didn't know what type of tree it was, so I made a note that this is the shape of the leaves in the evening time when the sun was coming through them. Here's some grasses, some prairie grasses. I don't know what this flower is called, but I see it all over. I want to paint more sunrises and sunsets. So I'm working on that a little bit. There's a thistle. These are some berries that I saw. A little dragonfly. I think that was the sunrise. This is from our maple in our yard. It was starting to turn in the fall. Guest post from my friend. Thanks, Addie, for the dragonfly. Here's one of the constellations that I've seen on early walks in the fall. Lots of different things here. This was a fun one. I think this was an aspen tree. And that's about it. I think I showed, and that was my first one. So there's a little in my nature notebook. I've enjoyed keeping one. I highly recommend it if you don't. And this is this is all for our session today. So thanks for doodling with me, and definitely check out the course. I'll put that link here one more time in the chat box for you. The course will take you from I've never drawn before to I feel pretty confident in watercoloring, brush drawing in my nature notebook, and then practicing some more broad techniques like this. So I recommend it. I had fun making it, and let me know if you have any other questions, and I will see you over on Instagram at Bestowing the Brush. I'll see you on Facebook. If you're on my Facebook page, there's that resource too. If you aren't on my newsletter already, definitely get on that, because I try to share special things there, and I give you an email about once every 3 weeks. So I will see you later, and I appreciate your time. Bye.